Hi, boys and girls. I thought you might be excited to get rid of me, but I'm here anyway. We have a short amount of time together today, so I thought that I would do a quick little mini lesson, and then you guys can watch Liberty's Kids. So please follow along. If you have any questions, don't ask them because I can't answer, but keep them fresh in your mind, and maybe when we get back on Monday, we can touch base on those questions. So here we go. Quick little review with the Revolutionary War, what we've covered so far. It began in April with the fighting at Lexington and Concord and the shot heard around the world. That's when Second Continental Congress met in May to ask for peace but prepare for war, and they chose George Washington to be the general of their Continental Army. Unfortunately, it'll take a little while for him to get his army together. In the meantime, that's when we talked about the story of Fort Ticonderoga with Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys with the help of our future traitor, Benedict Arnold, taking over the fort without a single shot being fired. And then, of course, we talked about those cannons being used to get rid of the blockade about 7 months from then. In the meantime, we have the first major battle of the Revolutionary War. That was the Battle of Bunker Hill. And, of course, that battle is being fought over Bunker Hill. They both wanted that control of the high ground. And just if you can remember the story that my little guy Ryan told with the British charging the hill, Breed's Hill 3 times until the colonists are finally forced to retreat due to a lack of ammunition. So the first major battle of the Revolutionary War is a British victory, although the colonists showed the British and showed themselves that they are a force to be reckoned with also. They killed and shot way more British than colonists were shot that day, and really the only thing that stopped the colonists from winning the Battle of Bunker Hill was a lack of ammunition. So we know that we have the fight, we just don't have the resources. This is at the point when the colonists start to realize they may need some allies in this war. That won't happen quite yet. In the meantime, we have George Washington trying to gather his army, and he does just that in July. Unfortunately, his army is a group of 10,000 men from all over the 13 colonies. They're disorganized, they're disrespectful, they're a hot mess. But they have no time to train, they have very limited supplies. It is time for them to go into battle against the strongest army in the world. And they do go up against the British battle after battle after battle. And each time that the Continental Army goes into battle against the British, they are forced to retreat, to run away. And over time, after losing and losing and losing again, this army starts to feel discouraged. They start to feel defeated. They start to feel hopeless. And many of Washington's army want to give up. Thank goodness that soon came something called common sense. And if you remember yesterday, we talked about common sense. Common sense was a pamphlet that allowed Thomas Paine, the guy who wrote it, to speak out against the king in Parliament, similar to the way that James Otis and Patrick Henry had done before. He wrote this pamphlet called Common Sense, and common sense is just a fancy schmancy word for duh. And Thomas Paine wanted to spread his ideas that to him completely made sense. He wanted to spread those ideas throughout the colonies. Basically, what his pamphlet Common Sense said was 3 main things. Number 1, he said, well, duh, KG3 is nothing but a bully. Duh, the colonists should be ruling themselves. We should be making our own rules and laws. And finally, he said, look, we need a complete and sudden change in the government. We need to get rid of KG3 in Parliament and replace them with different people, people that we like, people that we trust, people that we respect, and that will treat the colonists fairly. That change in government is called a revolution, which is why this war has been named the Revolutionary War or the American Revolution. People throughout the colonies read Common Sense. It was read more than the Bible was the year that it was released. Thomas Paine avoided getting in trouble for this writing by putting a fake name on his pamphlet. But one group that read Common Sense and really listened to the words inside of it was Congress. And it gave Congress an idea to sort of change how this war is going. Right now, the colonists are really fighting out of anger. We need to change the purpose of our fight. We also need to give the colonists a reason to stay in this war after battle after battle after battle is being lost. So Congress decides to write a document, one of the most important documents in American history, and it is called the Declaration of Independence. To translate Declaration of Independence, that is simply, declaration means a statement. independence simply means separation. So this is really a statement of separation, a statement that the colonists are now separating from England. They now consider themselves no longer controlled by England. This is their chance to be their own country. They needed someone to write the Declaration of Independence. Think for a minute if you can remember who they decided to go with to write the Declaration of Independence. Originally, they had asked Ben Franklin. He turned them down. So they had to go to a young lawyer from Virginia, not really a well-known person at the time, part of Congress, goes on to become the 3rd president of the United States. Maybe you were thinking Thomas Jefferson. So they get young Thomas Jefferson to write the Declaration of Independence. Where does he get his ideas from? Well, in Congress, during meetings, this guy, and you'll see him talking in today's episode of Liberty's Kids, his name is Richard Henry Lee. And Richard Henry Lee is also from Virginia, and he has a lot of great ideas that kind of come from Thomas Paine's common sense. And in Liberty's Kids, you're going to hear Richard Henry Lee say a bunch of colonial language mumbo jumbo. They spoke weird back then. So I'm going to go ahead and translate some of those words. For example, the red rectangles where I'm going to start. Richard Henry Lee says in weird colonial language, colonies should be free and independent states absolved of all allegiance to Great Britain. In our language, that means colonies are no longer owned by another country. So they're now 13 states, not 13 colonies. And they're going to not be controlled by the King and Parliament, and the Americans owe the King and Parliament nothing. In weird colonial language, Richard Henry Lee says, these independent states should be able to seek foreign alliances. What that means in our language is, these new 13 states are going to be free to become allies with whoever they want. England does not have a say. And finally, I know it's kind of blocked off by my face, but Richard Henry Lee says the 13 colonies will establish a plan of confederation. In our language, that simply means America is going to form its own government, its own rules and laws. So let's get to the point. In all, when Thomas Jefferson writes the Declaration of Independence, he has 3 main points. Number 1, he says people are born with certain rights. Number 2, KG3, he's taken those rights from us. And number 3, so what are we going to do about it? We're going to form our own country. Bottom line, we're born with certain rights. The king has taken those rights from us, so we're out of here. We're going to go form our own country. But Thomas Jefferson, he says it much more beautifully. You may have heard some of these words before. He says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these, and you may have heard this part before, are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, this is a copy of the Declaration of Independence that we will talk about in a minute. I'm going to skip that one and go here. Here's a little timeline of what happened. On June 28th, Thomas Jefferson gives his version of the Declaration of Independence to Continental Congress to read aloud. They read it and they say, this is good, but we got to edit and revise it a bunch. So they take a little while to edit and revise it. And then on July 2nd, they go back and they read it again and they have to vote. And the way that it works is the vote has to be unanimous. What that means is all 13 colonies have to agree. Even if one colony says, we're not going to do it, it doesn't get signed, it doesn't get done. So on July 2nd, they vote, and yes, all 13 colonies agree. But there's a couple more changes they want to make. So finally, on July 4th, 1776, Congress approves the Declaration of Independence and signs the Declaration of Independence. The first signature to go on the Declaration of Independence was the president's signature, John Hancock. And he signed it. You can see it's much bigger than everybody else's. And he did that on purpose. When he signed the Declaration of Independence, he said, I'm going to sign it so big that KG3 can see it all the way from England. And then the other members of Congress went and signed it as well. So you can see some of the other signatures here. Here's Ben Franklin. Here's Sam Adams and John Adams. The writer of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, is down here. So you can see a lot of those signatures. And there's all the signatures of the members of Congress down at the bottom of the Declaration of Independence. And you can see that the Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th, 1776. Then on July 8th, a few days later, the Declaration of Independence was read out loud in Philadelphia, and that's when the Liberty Bell was rung. And then the very next day, George Washington gets a copy of the Declaration of Independence, and he's in New York City with his army. Remember, his army feels discouraged. They feel ready to quit, and he reads the Declaration of Independence to his men, and it gives them a new reason to fight. Now it's not just about winning or losing. Now if they win this war, they can now win their separation, their independence. They have a goal. And General George Washington reads the Declaration of Independence to his men in New York City. And if you remember, New York City is where they put that 4,000-pound statue of KG-3 up in the center of the city. And when George Washington and his men hear that Declaration of Independence read, they get so excited. They take ropes, they throw them up around the statue, and they pull that 4,000-pound statue down. And what's the best part is what they do with the 4,000 pounds of metal. Think for a second, make a prediction. What would they do with those 4,000 pounds of metal from that statue? What they do is they melt that metal, and they turn that metal into bullets. Bullets that they're going to go ahead, turn around, and shoot right at KG-3's own soldiers. So that's pretty exciting. So think about this, boys and girls. The Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th. So another way to say July 4th, the 4th of July. Think about what you do on the 4th of July. You have barbecues, you set off fireworks. You probably don't even realize what you're celebrating. Another name for the 4th of July is Independence Day. When you are celebrating the 4th of July, you are celebrating the day that the colonists declared that they are separate from England, that they are their own country. Okay? Unfortunately, just signing a document isn't enough. Just signing a document saying, I am a butterfly, and I sign that document, it doesn't make me a butterfly. Same thing here. By the colonists saying we are no longer controlled by England, just by signing that document doesn't mean it's true. In order to make that document true, they must win this war. And now, so George Washington's men now are excited, they're motivated, and they're ready to go back into battle. So, it's time for Liberties, kids. I'm going to have you stop the video, go back to Google Classroom, and the link just underneath the one you got to go to this is going to be the link for Liberties, kids. Whoa. Hopefully you'll have enough time to watch the whole thing. If not, you can always finish it at home. Thanks so much. See you guys on Monday.